Hey there, Theresa here from TheresaMonro.com, and so it's been a minute since I've done like a traditional card deck review. It's actually been a while really since I've spent money on cards because I had taken a break from it for a little while, but there was a deck, I've come across it I guess 3 or 4 different times, and it is this one. It's the Art of Life deck. I don't know if you guys have seen this before. Check out all the reflections. So it's a tarot deck by Charlene Livingston, and what I love about this particular deck is that it combines 2 different things. When I was younger, I studied art starting, let's see, I guess 4th grade. I've always had a really strong creative side, but something that I enjoyed doing was learning about artists and learning about different painters and different pieces of art. And I will always remember like the first piece that I saw was a piece by Van Gogh. Now I've been very lucky in my life to be able to get to several fine art museums, later in life to like modern art museums, things like this. It was just always nice to be able to go in there. There was something about the serenity of that you find in those spaces and the appreciation of creativity that I just could really relate to. And so something that I was lucky enough to be able to do in my adult life as I was studying, you know, art history as a minor and art theory as well. I had several minors, but anyway, with varied interest, it comes to be that way. But just to give you reasoning behind why I appreciate this deck so much, is I always loved Oracle and Tarot cards, but I always had love for art. So I was lucky enough when I was living in Europe all throughout my 20s and early 30s that I got to go and see these pieces of art that I saw in books and study, you know, Picasso in the actual space where he painted, and, you know, things like that, and see these. There's something really special about seeing these pieces of art in person, for the size, and then also understanding, being sensitive for energy work. You can feel the energy of the artist sometimes in a room, if it's like a room of nothing but their art, but also if it's in the space where they did their creating, you can really get a sense for, like in Picasso's space in Paris, well, not just Paris where the actual museum is, but also in the space in a different town where they had his actual one of his creative studios. You could see like the windows he looked out of and things like that, get a real feel for him. But what was interesting was with a lot of artists, their like crown chakras were wide open. They've, for those that are creative, and this is why it's really good for you guys to, or all of us to have a creative outlet, is that it strengthens your connection to source, which is your hara line, and it opens the chakras. It's a different kind of form of channeling, to be quite honest with you, which is why you can kind of zone out and forget what you're doing for hours, especially if you're in a medium that you really like. And a medium being, that's an ironic word. They're laughing at the irony there in the use of the word medium, but there's like mediums if you like chalks, or if you like watercolor, if you like pen and ink and all of those different things, and then like later on with the Museum of Modern Art, people using like trash and creating art out of that. That was a really big deal. But anyway, these are more traditional pieces of art that are in here, but even the box opens like super cool. And when I got it, which was just a few minutes ago, I just picked it up and I was like, oh, I have to film about this, which I haven't done in such a long time, but I just wanted to let you guys know I'm really excited about this one, because it combines tarot and art. I mean, it's genius. And when I first saw somebody playing with the deck, I was like, Art of Life, huh? And I was kind of skeptical at first, thinking, okay, that's going to be cheeseball. But to be quite honest with you, I secretly love it. And so I would like to do some readings with these if you guys are interested. They have the right now at the time of filming, what I'm doing is I'm taking the plastic off. So at the time of this reading, there are those $10 readings if you guys have a single question or if you want to do something general. Okay. So the back has Gustav Klimt's work, and he used to paint in gold, and it's pretty cool because I didn't know this about him until now. Something that I really love is like different symbology of different religions and different it's really like angelic symbology, like the eye of Cyclopia is the all-seeing eye of God. It's non-judging, but it sees everything. It's sort of what records what happens and goes into the Akashic records. So the Eye of Horus is related to that, which there's symbology here in the paintings. And I don't know what this one is called. It's probably called Tree of Life, because we also have the falcon in here, which one of the falcons is representative of one of the rays of light, and different rays of light of different like birds or animals associated with it. But you also have these like swirls, which are all about creation, and then you have triangles, which usually represent the threefold flame, which is what the whole Trinity is. And the Trinity and the threefold flame are the first three rays of light. So the first one is blue, and the second one is yellow, and the third is pink. So it's Father God, divine will, personal power, a whole lot goes into that. Faith as well, that's all the blue. And then the second one is yellow, which is illumination and joy and clarity and understanding, Christ consciousness. And then that's the ray that feels really good. It'll tend to make you laugh when it comes through. And then the third one is pink, and that's the Mother God ray. So it's like unconditional love, essentially, which is why you have you know, sometimes you'll see in like traditional gender roles, you'll say, oh, masculine is blue, feminine is pink, because it goes all the way back to creation, is where some of that has come from. So yeah, it's interesting symbology. Some people don't know that that's where a lot of that comes from, but I've always loved his particular art. But I'm willing to bet that this one is called the Tree of Life, but I don't know if it's mentioned in the book, so I'm checking out. It comes with this little booklet in here, and how to do like sample readings and things like that. It doesn't talk about what each card means necessarily, but it does have about 30 different pages in here, and I don't see right offhand why that particular piece of art was chosen for the back, but anyway, it's pretty cool stuff. I'm excited to show you guys these cards. I mean, they're showing me to show you one more time. So like the all-seeing eye is on here, that Eye of Horus, the, you know, Eye of Cyclopia, and how they're all particularly related, and then the swirls in the tree for creation, but for like the golden ratio and how that works, if you have an understanding of that. And then the triangles for the triad, that's why there's a lot of triangles in different tribal energies, like here especially. You'll see certain triangles in you know, in places in the mountains and whatnot. So yeah, it's a gorgeous little box. I don't know, I love this. This is great. It's different. Most boxes like lift right up, but this one, you have a piece of art by Cezanne, and so like something that they did in the Museum of Modern Art maybe in the Tate Modern, they had a video of a still life just like this, but it was real oranges, and it was made to look just like this particular piece of art. But it showed a time lapse of the oranges decaying, so it was a different kind of video on it. So anyway, that's the sort of thing that you see. It's like, oh, okay, that's a different kind of rendition. Something that's neat about seeing this art in person as well is you can see the progression of the artists. And if you've got all one artist in one room and you're empathic, you can feel the moods of the artist, the particular energy of the artist arrives in the space. There's one room in the Van Gogh Museum in which they say that totally different in Dutch, which was surprising to me because I had never heard it before. But when you get into this one particular room, I think it's on the second floor, you see what was an older piece of art from when he first started studying called Potato Eaters, which was really dark, all the way to some of his lighter pieces, so you can see the entire progression. And that to me made a really, really big impression in terms of being able to see. I love watching artists and where they go with their work, because 9 times out of 10 they don't stay the same. And some of them can move quite quickly. So onto the cards. These are really beautiful. So they are all named the exact same. You have the major arcana, the minor arcana, the cups and the pentacles, and the the wands and the swords. So, but we happen to have the different pieces of art. So like with the Fool, you have a piece of art, and then it has a quote that's down below. So it says, this piece of art, it's got the piece of art, this one's The Jester with a Lute by Franz Hals, and it lets you know exactly where the piece of art is housed when it's not traveling. And then it's got a quote, and it says, you must live in the present, launch yourself on every wave, find your eternity in each moment. So it's got a poet's quote in here, and this is Henry David Thoreau. So it gets into, in the little booklet, about the story of how this ended up being created by the author. And let me see. Yeah, so she was looking up, the author was, from what I'm gathering in here, it looks like she was looking up what different cards were and what their meanings were. And she had a background in art history as well. And so she wanted to help people help themselves, and provided the meanings with different pieces of art that actually were important to her. So it's, all of it's quite classical, because the tarot goes pretty far back, art goes pretty far back, and so it's like classical pieces of art. And then we have these beautiful quotes. So next we have the Magician. I mean, it's kind of amazing to find these traditional pieces of art with these quotes. It says, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. And the High Priestess says, at the center of your being you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. So I'm going to go through these with you guys. I want to show you each of the cards. Then we have the Empress. Only passions, great passions, can elevate the soul to great things. For the Empress. So it's a slightly different kind of quote and meaning in here. What I can tell you is, when I've had cards drawn for me in this deck, it has made a different kind of impression compared to traditional meanings. We have the Emperor, which is a painting of Henry VIII, and it says, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This is something that Mike Dooley has talked about in the his last 30 days with, messages from the universe. It's a pretty cool program. The Hierophant, or the Hierophant, depending on how you like to say it. Rules are not necessarily sacred, but principles are, by Franklin Roosevelt. So I guess sometimes it is. I guess there's quotes in here that are not just, I don't know, I guess they're inspirational. Oh, we have the Lovers. This is quite precious. The heart has reasons that reason cannot know. Pascal. Oh. They're saying show that one more time. I know you guys love these love cards. So the Chariot. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Emerson. It's interesting about the Chariot. I think this is the Cancer card usually, and it's where there's a lot of forward movement and that sort of thing. Strength, and this one's a portrait of Queen Elizabeth. He knows not his own strength that hath not met adversity. Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon, by the way, is who Saint Germain was. That was one of Saint Germain's prior lifetimes. which was also who wrote, I want to say, all the Shakespeare stuff. He did confirm that. So the Hermit is next. It says, nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than his own soul. That's absolutely true. It's so something that they sometimes mention for people that have, like sometimes people have their feelers out, like their antennas out, and so what they sometimes show is for empaths who have their feelers out, to turn their feelers in towards their spinal column, so it'll calm down the nervous system. That may be something that works for you. This one's the Wheel of Fortune. It's beautiful. You've seen some of this because what she's got behind her are all of the zodiac signs, and gosh, it's beautiful. It's called the Zodiac, and it's from an artist that's in the Czech Republic. It says, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And this one is a quote from the Bible. So the Wheel of Fortune, what goes around comes around, and things change. This is what the beings of light call the cosmic clock. This back here, they consider all of astrology to be fully karmic, even though, but what they love about it, what they really encourage about a lot of astrology, if it's used in an empowering way, is that you'll be able to anticipate what your tests are before coming to it. So if you have a really good astrologer, they will empower you by mentioning, okay, here's what your potential tests are, here's the tools to go about doing that, which is why they had me create what your concentrated karmic path is for the next 2.5 to 3 years. It's on my Vimeo account. If you guys are interested, I think they're 99 cents a piece. So this one's Justice. This is one of the very first pieces of art that I ever saw, and it's a Vincent van Gogh. It's a self-portrait, and I can't remember if this is just before or just after he cut off his earlobe. Some people say he cut off his entire ear, and he didn't. He just did the earlobe. It says, this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day thou canst not then be false to any man. So if you're true to yourself, you'll be true to others. This is, so when sometimes people say, well, what does authenticity look like? That's essentially being true to yourself. And then we get into the discussion of, well, is that selfish? And how do I balance that out with other people's stuff? It's like, well, you can be more true to somebody else if you're true to yourself first, because being loyal to you is the most important thing. So then we have the Hanged Man, and this is by a gentleman with the last name Kirschner. Kirsch is German for cherry. It says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. The Hanged Man. Different perspectives here, you know, because you've got the shadows, you've got the lights, you've got stuff going on in the background back here. So Death, this is another one that's by Gustav Klimt. It's called Death and Life, this particular piece. So it's got all the multiple different phases. Death twitches in my ear. Live, he says, I am coming. Temperance. This is a beautiful piece. The unlike is joined together, and from differences results the most beautiful harmony. And it's a woman washing her feet in a brook. And Pissarro. So some of you, if you have a real appreciation for, many more pieces in here are more traditional art, but some of it, what's interesting is each of these pieces of art were really controversial at the time. Like right now, people can look, well, I guess it was even almost 20 years ago when trash was being used as art for the first time, and people walked in and there was this shock and this awe, and people said, that's not art. Well, believe it or not, these pieces of art at the time were said, many of them were said to not be art at all. And that is, if you have a very strong emotional reaction to it, then that is usually the movement of the moment. So, because some of the stuff we look at it and we accept it because it's just part of what we've been told, or we've seen it a number of times, or it's just, you know, art on canvas, but art is far more 3D now. It's a little bit different. So we have the devil, and it says a man should never be ashamed to own that he has been in the wrong, which is but saying that he is wiser today than yesterday. So definitely some interesting perspectives in here. And then we have the the ever-loving tower. What does not destroy me makes me stronger is the tower. I swear everybody says that with this one. Here's the beautiful thing about this card is that a lot of us cringe when we see it. For some that's realize, oh God, here we go. Here goes more change. One of the messages that they say right now is, like from the Beings of Light, is if you can get more comfortable with change, it'll be easier through 2018, because this is the year that they're trying to create more stability upon the foundation. So it's like, yeah, 2017 was a 1 year where they build foundations, and now they're trying to build a little bit more upon that, like make it more stable. So right now they're moving further more stuff out. Well, more so in January. February is more of like a stabilization month where a lot of us are starting to feel like we have a little bit more control in our lives compared to the bumpy road. But the one thing that they want to say about the tower is that sometimes it's changed to bring in what it is that you want. So it's getting rid of the older stuff. Oh, this was probably the second piece of art I ever saw. This is called Starry Night, and it's by Van Gogh again. And it was just stuff I had never seen before, but colors I recognized. This one's called The Star. If thou follow thy star, thou canst not fail of a glorious heaven. So it goes back to telling a story about... yeah, following your inner heart, following the star, because what they show me that Van Gogh was talking about was a vision that he had back when, during the time when Jesus was born in the star, that the 3 wise men followed to get to him, which, by the way, was actually a light body. Some people say that it was, you know, the, what is it, which star was that? The Syrian star, which may have also been true, but many are stating it was actually a light body that was spinning, and yeah, it looks like an orb, by the way. That's what they look like. So this one's the moon. It says, go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you have imagined. And this is called the Sleeping Gypsy, with the lion and the moon. So you'll recognize the lion happens to be from the 9th ray of light, which is magenta, and that's where Ariel and Harmony are from. This is the sun, which surprisingly isn't a painting of the sun at all. And it says, precisely the least, the softest, lightest, a lizard's rustling, a breath, a flash, a moment, a little makes the way of the best happiness. So you'd think it would be a painting of the sun, and it's not. Judgment, and this one is ironically a painting of the moon, and it's got a lot of the astrological signs around it. The universe is transformation. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Absolutely. There's a lot of messages in here about manifestation. And if you watched the, let's see, February 2018 energy update, they're talking a lot about thoughts, how they're changing within the collective, particularly with the feminine right now. There's a bit more of a focus with changing our thoughts. That it started later last year, but right now it's even more so important, and how it's affecting our current situation. This one is the world, and all that Adam had, all that Caesar could, you have and can do. Build, therefore, your own world. And what was being drawn here was the light body. So there's an orb here. The light body protects you when you're traveling. So when you're, you know, traveling during sleep and that sort of thing. You also can use it to activate for protection. I've seen a client who used it during the California fires, and you can expand it, and there's a perfect circular ring of where the fires were not able to reach the house, because that's how big the light body was when it was expanded. That's your Merkaba. So for those of you that are interested, it's something that I also use in my work for clearing. So because you can spin it counterclockwise and when it's activated, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty active for 12th dimensional work and beyond. This one is the King of Swords. It's a portrait of John James Howell Coe, which I'm not sure who he is, but it's a pretty impressive. Ah, okay. So they have some masonry art in here, that symbolism, which also represents the light body. So interesting that these pieces of art in different like clans and different, the symbology is everywhere, but it always goes back to the Keylontic sciences and the symbologies of creation and that sort of thing. So it's those things naturally, and I mean, they've got symbology of the masculine in here, the first ray of light, the yellow ray of light, all kinds of stuff. So this stuff is all creation energy. It's just what you do with it and how you use it. It's how you, power is basically neutral, but what you use it for is what's important. It says the great virtue is the real courage to face facts and live beyond them. Face facts and live beyond them. Interesting how we're talking about all these facts and symbology. The Queen of Swords. The allegory of good government is what this piece is called. And it says, be content with what you have, rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. So this one's talking about acceptance, about truth, and gratitude, essentially, is what they're talking about here. Which is, that's the Queen card, which they sometimes call the Queen Bitch. The Libra card. It's just, I gotta tell you though, it gets kind of a bad rap because if you get a Libra that angry, you've really messed up. You've done something to get, if a Libra is using her words or becomes icy with you, you've messed up in some kind of way. Knight of Swords. So interesting with this one. This is Don Quixote, a painting of Don Quixote, and it says, to dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose one's self. Yeah? So they're showing the blue, the red, and the yellow. It's the first three flames in here. The Page of Swords. When the student is ready, the master will appear. There's a lot of really esoteric quotes. So this is a good, I'm enjoying these. Ten of Swords, those things that hurt, instruct. She's trying to say, your pain can be a teacher. Nine of Swords, the longer we dwell on our misfortunes, the greater their power is to harm us. That is so true. I feel like this is a manifestation deck, and it's everything that I was talking about in the February 2018 energy update, because they said the more you tell the story, the more you're manifesting that, and you're not going to heal from telling the story over again. Usually it's a sign that there's trauma like caught in the body somewhere, usually somewhere along the nervous system. So the Eight of Swords, you can never cross the ocean unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. This one has a little bit to do with trust. And that's a quote by Christopher Columbus, who also was a lifetime that Saint Germain had. Now, Saint Germain, part of the reason why he had so many incarnations that were instrumental with the United States is because they were setting up the United States to be a place for a leader of the heart, which is why they chose its birthday to be a Cancer. They talk a lot about this, but it can be, you know, some people are like, oh, you got to be kidding me, but that's, you know, that's their intention. I just know their particular story of what they've shared and how, you know, through the tumultuous times that are happening now, it's like the time of the great shift to get into a place of peace and being a real leader of the heart, a leader of the violet flame, because Saint Germain represents the age of Pisces, which is the violet flame, the seventh ray of light of transmutation and forgiveness and perfect balance of masculine and feminine. So we now have the Seven of Swords. It's another Van Gogh. And one must have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. So here's the interesting thing about chaos. There was a chaotic situation that was happening recently nearby, and I was like, this is crazy. This is a little intense. And what they said was, most people, when you experience like the heart of Source, the great central sun, when you get there, it is a star. It's right near Andromeda. When you get there, they said it's not this place of perfect peace that people expect it to be. It's quite chaotic, and that chaos is where everything is born out of, which is where that quote comes from, because if you think about how stars are born, it is quite a creative chaotic storm. So the ironic thing that they want to say is that people that are chaotic, if they learn to harness their power, which at some point they will learn in one lifetime or another, but when they learn how to do that, they're going to be really powerful people. If they learn to direct it for positive, it's a situation that these are people that could really instantly manifest anything they wanted. Again, but you'd have to go back into changing how you thought, how you handle your emotions, are you projecting towards another person and that sort of thing. But up until then, like the things that they're creating, because they're also stating typically people that are creative can sometimes have a temper if they haven't learned how to harness that power properly. Interesting, the messages that are coming through with these cards. So the Six of Swords is another beautiful woman, and it says, for everything you have missed in life, you have gained something else. So this one's a little bit about some perspective of, because that was something that happened. I'll give you an example. I was renting a space, and initially the funds for it didn't come up, and they said we were negotiating, because before they would just not give me the money, and they were like, no, that's a no. And I would get kind of frustrated, and so kind of negotiated and said, can you just give me the funds and let me see what happens as to why that would have been a no? And they were like, oh, okay, sure. So they have showed me, and they were like, well, to let you know there was a pattern here, we'll let you figure out what the pattern was, or a situation that you were complete with and you didn't have to repeat it, but the space was beautiful. And so a part of me was like, no, I don't want to leave this space. I want to go find another pretty space. Sometimes we think like, oh, there isn't a better space than this, but my group healing sessions are growing, and so they're staying in person, and so they're like, you really need to be in a bigger space so that more people can come. And I said, okay, and there's this chaotic situation next door, and they were like, so we initially didn't have the funds for you because we didn't want you to be involved in that particular studio. We wanted you in a different studio. And so now I've seen that, and I'm back looking at it at other in a more stable environment, because ironically it only gets chaotic when the rays of light come through, or when we're like starting a group situation, the person next door gets a little it activates some stuff for them. So everybody that doesn't, not everybody is focused on the light. Those who are really attracted to it, but if it's bringing up like them feeling left out, or their stuff, they sometimes can end up chaotic. So just to give you an idea of, I would have maybe thought that I was missing out on it, but now I'm seeing, okay, there's a rhyme and a reason. So it helps me to say, oh, okay, I see. It makes it easier to trust if something doesn't go through, sort of like with a relationship, if it ends. I just remind myself, okay, every relationship that has ever ended or has not come to full fruition, it's because there's something I don't need to repeat, and I have learned to become grateful for it. In the moment, it can be a little bit challenging, because I'm like, but I liked them, and there's all this stuff going on energetically in my body. But once that settles, or even before it settles, I'll say, okay, I'll remind myself, I remember, like, I've been happy that every single relationship that has ended. And so yeah, it's a lesson in gratitude sometimes for me, or not even so much a lesson, but it gives me a different kind of perspective and say, okay, yeah, it's just how it's a different mindset so that I can feel better. This card's the Five of Swords, and this one is by Monet, although it's not quite as pastel-y as the ones you might be used to. It says, sometimes I go about pitying myself, and all the time I am being carried on great winds across the sky. So by the way, if it like cuts off in here, it's like it may have like 3 or 4 minutes ago, that's because the phone cuts off at like 33 minutes and 11 seconds or something, and I haven't been able to fix it. It's a Samsung thing, so at some point when I get a nice camera for recording, I think that will shift, but however, for now, I apologize. The Four of Swords. Did I show you the Five of Swords? Did I show you that one? That was the last one. So it says, sometimes I go about pitying myself, and all the time I am being carried on great winds across the sky. Four of Swords. My sun sets to rise again. This is something that they have people do to establish trust again, is to watch for 30 days every sunset and every sunrise, and it establishes trust. It's a very simple meditation. You don't have to look directly at the light or anything. Three of Swords. Difficulties exist to be surmounted. They're stating don't quit. This is the don't quit card. But if you have the Three of Swords, which is traditionally kind of a heartbreak card, which makes sense that there's red hair here. It's by Gauguin. But again, it's ironic because we were just talking about heartbreak. And interesting that there's 3, because they're talking about like third parties here. Two of Swords. As a man thinketh, so is he. As a man chooseth, so is he. And you're kind of defined by your choices and your thoughts, 2 things that you can control in your environment. If you want to change how you are and how you see the world, change the way that you think, and change the choices that you're making. And because that further affects your mental and emotional bodies. The Ace of Swords. I am not afraid of storms, for I am learning to sail my ship. That's all about perspective when things get, sometimes challenging. It's interesting because some of those sword cards can be a little bit challenging. This one, Napoleon, this is a rather famous one. Self-confidence is the first requisite to great undertakings. King of Wands. Spirit is stating, fake it till you make it. And I know that sounds crazy, but I swear to you, if you can, it's sort of like pretending that you're already successful. Success is inevitable. It's sort of like if you, are always talking about your failures, you'll continue to, have that in your life. So it's not about fate. Fate is what you create. So you get to determine what is, where your successes are. Queen of Wands. This is one of my favorite cards. This one was pulled for me, and yeah, this is a beautiful one. It says the greatest good you can do for another is not to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own. So this is kind of a card that when the initial message came up from the person that was reading the card, there was something else that Spirit said to me. And so something that can be really important is some people will talk a lot about, themselves. And then there are people that will also, have a better connection with people by showing other people what their strengths are. And then they were talking about how sharing my own stories, if you really look into the lesson that's there or the situation, you can gather information about how you could maneuver a situation. Because if I tend to share a story with somebody, there's a lot of storytelling that happens amongst the angels in terms of lessons. A lot of riddles too. They give riddles to people that are, it's a little bit more advanced work. But but if life's kind of a riddle, they're stating. But yeah, that's something that they want to mention, is that they share stories, and in these stories it will be very specific to somebody that's watching or somebody that's present, and I may feel like it is very random, and I'm thinking, gosh, why am I sharing about myself? Like I should be doing something else. And they're like, no, no, there's a lesson here for that person. Somebody who's very aware of how the angels teach, or the beings of light teach through story, will go, okay, my answer to my question that I had is being told by this story that this person is sharing, that they went through, and how I can maneuver it and make sure that it's not difficult, so that it's easier. Somebody who's less advanced will take that situation and be like, and may not see all of that, and have a different reaction. But somebody who understands how to garner, I mean, that's why sometimes you have stories in the Bible. It's like there's lessons there. So whenever anybody's sharing a particular story, there's some lesson in it for you, usually if they're a teacher. This is a little bit different from people that's just complaining to complain. Knight of Wands, the real voyage of discovery lies not in finding new landscapes, but in having new eyes. This is a card about changing your perspective. The Knight of Wands, change your perspective. Interesting that wands are so fiery and it's a watery image. Page of Wands, it's never too late to be what you might have become. So don't give up on your dreams. Keep going. If there's something that you wanted to do when you were younger, like here it's learning to sword fight, you may be an adult. You're never too old to learn. Like they're showing me ballet. If you're 80 and you want to learn how to play piano, or you know, come across ballet for the first time and you're older, they have beginners, you know, classes for adults. That does exist now, which I think is great. And I heard the story of this team of adults. They're like the elderly, it's like 80 and above, and they're just playing basketball. They were people that didn't have a chance to do so when they were younger, and they're just whooping it. They're whooping everybody. I think you have to be 65 and older. But somebody was telling me that story, and I'm like, that is fantastic. You know, of people that wanted to play when they were younger and never got a chance because they weren't allowed to wear shorts or things like that. So, yeah, I'm remembering who told me the story now. So the Ten of Wands, patience and fortitude conquer all things. Yep. They're talking about things show up in different timing from what we may expect. What they're talking about when they talk about divine timing has to do with when you're in alignment with it. And so you can have anything and everything you ever want. It just, the timing may be different from what you expect. So like when I was little, I always wanted BMWs. I always saw them. I always thought they were amazing. I took, you know, professional driver's license, or driver's training on the Nürburgring in Germany, and that was amazing in BMWs. So and then I finally got to own a couple of them, and it was just, it's still amazing, and it came later than what I expected. In fact, I didn't think it was ever going to come true. I just kind of let it go, but things are always in your vortex, and if it's something that you want, you can always have it. I guarantee you that. And there's, you know, different steps, and sometimes it's attachment, sometimes it's just stating, yeah, I'd really like to have one of those again, because I will probably eventually end up with like a BMW electric car, because my car is currently electric. I switched from having a BMW on the mainland, which was like 500 horsepower, and there was no need for, because for those of you that don't know, I used to really enjoy going around the Nürburgring in Germany, which for those of you who know anything about driving, like that's a real thing for me. That was a real hobby, going every single weekend and riding in these luxury vehicles and seeing them like performed. It's where a lot of race cars are tested. So when I finally had a car that had like real power and stuff like that, after a period of not having a car, and they're laughing, real power, it's like that first ray of light being about power, It's a different kind of feeling. But coming here to Hawaii on this particular island, you know, where the speed limit's 45 and the roads are really, they're just different. The car would not, I mean, they're windy roads. It would have been, you know, good. It would have handled really well on. But being here, it was more important to me to have an electric vehicle because I didn't want to support, you have to ship everything in, and I didn't want to support oil in that way, or I wanted to give back to the island in terms of not, it's zero emissions. So besides that, having an electric car is really cool, and not paying for gas. It's amazing how, like, the car doesn't smell, it's silent, there's so many benefits. The one thing that I do miss, though, for those of you who own a BMW, have ever been in one and appreciate this, when you press the button and the engine goes whoom, and it's just, oh, there's nothing like it. It makes my ears really happy. So, anyway, 10 of Wands. Patience and fortitude conquer all things. So I promise you, there's, yeah, it's worth the wait, is what they're stating. 9 of Wands, a woman in red in the forest, and by Rousseau. In times of stress, be bold and valiant. Bold and valiant. She's kind of sticking out here, huh? Oh, don't be afraid to be bold and valiant. Especially, I don't know. Not that, for whatever that means to you. I guess in moments of stress, like, wear the brightest colors you possibly can. I don't know what that is. What is that all about? Get out into nature, they're stating. They're stating, get out into nature, get into the forest. Be bold and valiant anyway. The stress will pass. The 8 of Wands. Nothing ever is, but all things are becoming. All things are the offspring of flux and motion, and they're talking about the cycles of change. 8 of Wands. All things are born of change. Yeah. Pretty big waves here. 7 of Wands. Life is not a matter of holding good cards, but playing a poor hand well. Yeah, you guys have all heard that phrase about playing your cards right. Because making the most of it, like making lemons out of lemonade. 6 of Wands. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. They're silly. So I guess whatever it is you do, do it with enthusiasm. The wisest men follow their own direction. 5 of Wands. Ain't that the truth? Yep. We're all secretly doing that anyway. Some people, I swear, there will be some times, because that's the other thing, though, that they're stating for people that are doing something that's really different from the rest of the collective, or it's ahead of the time from, you know, it's like a very, very new path. It sometimes can be upsetting to the people that are around them. But they're just stating it doesn't have to be alone. There are other people that are forging the same kind of crazy path. So the 4 of Wands, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. Interesting. By setting your intentions. 3 of Wands. So another clamped. This one is a little bit different. To be what we are and to become what we are capable of becoming is the only end of life. Yeah, 3 of Wands. Yeah, they're talking about stagnation. 2 of Wands. The first step towards getting somewhere is to decide that you are not going to stay where you are. You have the ability to get yourself unstuck at any given moment. You may not know how, but you can ask for inspiration on how. Pay attention to that little bitty voice that you get. But I promise you, I mean, this isn't a messy card. This is a nice card. So just decide that you're not going to stay where you're at. Decide that you're going to do something different. And then allow them to show you how. because there was something that I came across today with, they said go post in this group about this, and I did. And then it was about something off topic, and then a woman posted and said, oh yeah, let me help you with this part of your project. And I said, cool. And then turns out that she's got all of these angelic connections and people that work with like the 12th ray of light and how they're applying sacred geometry. It's pretty cool stuff. We have the Ace of Wands. Whatever you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. It's funny, as I'm doing these, I'm thinking about, is this video going too long? Ace of Wands. Whatever you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So they're showing me that the moment of boldness is when you decide that you're going to create something different. Like when you actually decide that it's kind of bold when they give that idea to you. It may feel bold, some of your ideas. So the King of Cups, it's a good thing to be rich and to be strong, but it is a better thing to be loved. Ain't that the truth? We all know that. They're showing a halo up there, which is typically what your I Am presence is. So, a lot of symbology in that one. The Queen of Cups, blessed is the influence of one true loving human soul on another. Yeah, cups, all about the love. Oh, the Queen of Cups. It's like all that motherly love, Queen of Cups. So the Knight of Cups, there's nothing half so sweet in life as love's young dream. So there's nothing half so sweet in life as love's young dream. So it's just somebody, they're showing me that it's like the beginning of even just a gentleman or a couple's decision in the beginning. And it's that new kind of love. It's like an offer of love, but it feels like it's just after the offer. So a Page of Cups, there is no instinct like that of the heart. Ain't that the truth? Follow your heart. If you've got a crazy idea in your heart, just do it. Because what comes right after that are the fears, and that's going to happen no matter what ideas you've got. Whether you follow through on what the idea is or not, you might as well try. We have the Ten of Cups, which is let us be grateful to people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our souls blossom. Stick with those that you feel loved by. Stick with those that reflect that love back to you. You can have more of those, because sometimes what I can hear is, oh yes, but there are lessons and blah blah blah. Yeah, but it's there are joyous ways to learn lessons, and there are more difficult ways to gain lessons. Do you want to do it through suffering, or do you want to do it through joy? Something else we talked about in the recent energy update from February 2018. Nine of Cups. Now she is having a good time. A happy life is won in accordance with its own nature. Yeah? This is what alignment looks like, folks. Eight of Cups. In each loss there is a gain, as in every gain there is a loss, and with each ending comes a new beginning. So they're just reminding you about times of transition, this card. Seven of Cups. Who so loves believes the impossible. Ain't that the truth? There's at least some moment where we have a moment like that in our lives. Six of Cups. God gave us memories so that we might have roses in December. If you remember Saint Theresa, also called Little Flower, and how she found a rose in the dead of winter when they shouldn't have found roses. Yeah. It's just, if it's a moment of drought, you can always look back on happier times. Five of Cups. Better by far you should forget and smile than you should remember and be sad. Aww. Think about the happy memories. But it's also a card warning sometimes if you only think about the happier things and you're thinking about going back to somebody and you're forgetting about the things that were sad. They're just remembering also, if you're reminding you, if you have a lot of sad memories coming up, switch to the happy ones. You get to change the channel. You get to decide how you feel by changing your thoughts, which they're going to talk about a lot this year. Four of Cups. When the music changes, so should the dance. Three of Cups. Those who bring sunshine into the lives of others cannot keep it from themselves. Aww. love being around sunshiny, happy people. Two of Cups. I love you not only for what you are, but for what I am when I am with you. Ain't that the truth? Let me tell you something. Sometimes the greatest partners and the people that I enjoy being around the most is when, the most impactful people have been since living here, and noticing like how I feel and certain people's presence from Soul Tribe that I haven't seen in like centuries. And when I'm in their presence, it feels like home. And I'm grounded and I'm more centered in my body than I've ever felt. And sometimes there's the exact opposite of that as well. So yeah, that's a good feeling, because I get to feel that again. It's happening more and more often, but I get to feel that again on Thursday, and I was like, holy smokes, this is different from anything that I felt by a certain, couple of people that were in my presence. I'm so grateful for that, because it's changed my life. I hope you guys get to feel that way. It's different. It's a different type of power and grounding and heart-centeredness, and I'm just like, man, being in the body can feel really, really good. Ace of Cups. When I saw you, I fell in love, and you smiled because you knew. It's a beautiful process, falling in love. King of Pentacles, and wealth stays with us a little moment, if at all. Only your characters are steadfast, not our gold. So this is true. They're stay true to your word. Queen of Pentacles. So riches are not from abundance of worldly goods, but from a contented mind. Yeah. We have the Knight of Pentacles. The secret of success is constancy of purpose. That's true. Sticking with it. Because sometimes people give up just before, because, if you're feeling lost or not knowing if it's the right path, or if it's the path that's going to get you the results that you're wanting, sometimes people give up. They're stating, just try and stick with it. Consistency can bring that for you. Especially in your thoughts, in terms of all of that. Page of Pentacles. The first step towards philosophy is incredulity. It's an interesting perspective. Ten of Pentacles. Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance. That is true. How you feel about something will be part of the process of bringing in what it is that you want. When you're in a place of joy, when you're doing more joyful things, you have more beautiful things coming into your life. And when they talk about being in resonance with it, there's several different states to that, but if it makes you excited, that's something that you can have. So I heard somebody state yesterday or the day before, oh, I don't want to get too excited about it. And I'm like, honey, get excited about it, because that's what brings it into like your realm of physical existence. That joy is what we're here to be. Don't tell yourself you need to be like emotionally stable. Like, joy, if you've got a moment of that and an inspiration, like, that is divine guidance. The more you listen to that, the more you receive. Nine of Pentacles. None of us will ever accomplish anything excellent or commanding except when he listens to his whisper, which is heard by him alone. Pay attention to your intuition. Eight of Pentacles. Until you try, you don't know what you can do. These are really encouraging messages here. Another Van Gogh. Because imagine if he had never, ever painted. We wouldn't have the beauty of his art. He painted with so much color. Well, there was a period that it was really dark if you look up the Potato Eaters. Seven of Pentacles, but, he still had to try. If he had never tried, picking up a paintbrush or, painting with other colors because they were cheaper, he wouldn't have gotten where he's at. Seven of Pentacles. With time and patience, the mulberry leaf grows a silk gown. It's coming. Six of Pentacles. A man's true wealth is the good he does in this world. Yeah. It's true. Five of Pentacles. Resolve to be thyself, and know that he who finds himself loses his misery. So you see how she's not particularly happy here, and it's because she's around people she feels like she can't be herself around, that she has to conform to. The thing is, if you've been conforming for a while and you decide that you want to do something different and you're not conforming and you're going to be happy, the people around you may shift. So as long as you are ready for that particular mindset and you understand that it's going to be bringing in people, if you're consistent about being yourself, and it may upset some of the people that are around you, understand that it's going to continue to bring in the people that like your kind of quirkiness, your kind of, you know, quirky ways. And then you're happy and the people around you are happy and they appreciate you, and it brings in more joy, although it can be easier said than done sometimes. 4 of Pentacles. Ordinary riches can be stolen. Real riches cannot. In your soul are infinitely precious things that cannot be taken from you. That is true. We're talking about the virtues. Ordinary riches can be stolen. Real riches cannot. So 3 of Pentacles. The reward of a thing well done is to have done it. You guys ever look back and celebrate the things that you've done for yourself? The goals? Something that I did this particular month is keep a note of everything that I manifested, everything that I wanted that came to be, everything that I had ever put a wish out for. When I noticed it and had Spirit remind me, oh yes, this came to be, I wrote it down. And it ended up being like quite a few pages of things. So it changed my perspective from, okay, well, this still hasn't happened, to, yeah, but look at all these things that have, and how you've taken steps to get to where it is that you want to be. Which reminds me, there's a couple of things I need to add to that list for January, because actually it may be February 1st. Yeah, I think it'll be February 1st. So 2 of Pentacles, and it says, happiness is not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. Creativity and the creative process is fun. And it's also a real thrill. Like, I created these, you know, energy sprays, and right now the labels are handwritten. But what I love about them is that, like, in my retail space, people just walk right up and they just purchase them, and they don't care that they're handwritten. And I really loved that. I didn't have to sell them. People walked right up and just were like, I need this in my life right now. And I'm like, okay, you can have it. And then I sold my first one to a client and mailed it out yesterday. And even though it wasn't perfect, people were excited about it. And that was just another big breakthrough of, oh my gosh, I like mailed off my first one. It's a big deal. Celebrate those moments. So the last card in the deck is the Ace of Pentacles, and it says, The Luncheon is the name of it, and it's by Monet. And it says, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. And I will also say that finances create a certain amount of freedom. And allow you to fully experience life more. There's not really much more of a moment more exhilarating than when a dream comes true, and sit with that feeling for as long as you possibly can when it comes to be. I hope you've enjoyed this deck. There's also the Goddess deck that I think I'm going to do a review on right after this. I'm excited to get to do like a reading on this. If you want a single card reading, or if you want a single question reading, on my website under card readings. Currently, I don't know if it'll be there, you know, whenever you're watching this, but it depends. Sometimes I take breaks from readings, but right now I kind of miss the cards. Sometimes they go on the back burner if I'm really busy with something else that's going on, and I'm, you know, it kind of depends. But if it's available, I'd love to, you know, pull some cards, and you can ask specifically for a deck if you want. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed these as much as me. This is neat. I didn't expect to see so much symbology in these, but that was a real point of remembering when all the different information has come through for different symbology. And
one of the things that I'm loving right now is studying up on some of the symbology that's here and seeing how it like in tribal tattoos and things, and it's interesting. It's different, but yeah, thought I'd share. I hope you've really liked this deck and for sticking through the different messages with each card. And yeah, so thanks so much. Sending you lots of love. Bye.